Thank you, Chair, and Happy New Year, everybody. So I want to pick up on disability hate crime, and we heard earlier from Louise Holden and also from Jennifer Taylor, and I'm going to bring you both in after I've asked some questions to some of our other guests. But we so looking at the report from Inclusion London on the what's described as a poor police response, there's some really worrying examples, and earlier we were told that I think by Barry Hughes that the numbers of disability hate crimes are relatively low. But I still think we need to take these crimes very seriously, and we need to make sure that there is an appropriate response to them. Now, the Met and the CPS have been criticised for failing to tackle disability hate crime effectively. Now, do you agree with this, and what action is being taken to ensure that reports of disability hate crime are dealt with effectively? And I'd like to hear on this from Commander Dales and also from Kenny Bowie and from Barry Hughes. So, Commander Dales, do you want to go first? I think Commander Dales is online.
Sorry, I'm just putting my camera on, apologies. So this forms a big part of the work in relation to the strategic group about how do we ensure that the officers are trained, understand and identify issues of disability hate crime. There has been a 21% increase in reporting of hate crime from December 19 to November 20. And then December 20 to November 21. So as I've said already throughout the meeting, I think this is a success in relation to the work that the board and the tactical groups have been doing. In addition to that, we've gone from a sanction detection rate from 1.8% to 3.9% in 12 months. And whilst that is very low, and it is very much off our aspiration of 15% as set by the Commissioner, what it has shown is that the work that we are doing is starting to pay dividends, and we've more than doubled the detection rate in less than 12 months, which is a big achievement in terms of the volume of work that the Metropolitan Police do. And this has been really led by the work that I spoke about already with the lead responsible officer who meets with the local HCOPs every 2 weeks to review the crimes and drive forward the investigations to make sure that they are progressed in the right way.
Thank you. Would either of the other, Kenny Bowie and Barry Hughes, who wants to?
So maybe if I just come in just to build on what Commander Dales has said there, because obviously not only has the Met been looking at its governance of this, but so has MOPAC, and actually MOPAC and the Metropolitan Police together, we have our new hate crime stakeholder reference group, which was initiated in July 2021, and the idea is that by bringing both of our sets of stakeholders together in that way, everything can be more powerful in terms of ensuring that the response to hate crime is appropriate in terms of the prosecution and in terms of getting the response it needs. Part of the pack, which goes to the MOPAC and Met Oversight Board on a quarterly basis, contains all of the figures around hate crime, which is actively looked at and monitored by the Deputy Mayor and a team of officials, and the Mayor receives a weekly report on actual hate crime figures and what's going on in London, so that he's able to delve into that as and when he needs to. And I think, as Commander Dale said, when looking at this, although the numbers are relatively small, there has been a 21% increase year on year to the end of November 2021 in terms of police recorded crimes that hate crimes that relate to disability, and clearly it's very important that they get the response that they deserve.
Thank you. And Barry Hughes, did you want to add anything from the CPS?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if I could just touch upon three aspects here in relation to disability hate crime. Numbers, conviction rates and public confidence. There is a link between all of them, which I'll seek to explain. As Mel said, there has been an increase in referrals. It's heading in the right direction. All of these cases have to come through the CPS, but the numbers are still very low. We see these numbers pan-London and we see them on a BCU by BCU basis. Pan-London, the numbers are low double figures on a quarterly basis, and I don't think that can reflect the true rate of prosecutions that we should have for disability hate crime. So there's a very high level of attrition, and the reasons for that are complicated, and we've touched upon those at various points during the course of this morning. But the numbers are heading in the right direction, and the work that Mel described before is starting to show results. So there is some cause to be have a degree of confidence that things are moving in the right direction. In terms of conviction rates, we assess the conviction rates for all the different types of hate crime. Racist and religiously aggravated hate crime is the one which has the highest conviction rate. Disability hate crime has the lowest. It's still reasonable at around 72%, but it could be a little bit better. And we know that the victims of disability hate crime are going to struggle more than some others in terms of the way in which they conduct themselves and are supported when it comes to court. So I've no doubt that we, the criminal justice system, we have more to do when it comes to disability hate crime in London. My final point in relation to public confidence wraps around all of this. Dave mentioned this earlier in the meeting, and I'm absolutely in agreement with him that one of the very best ways to drive up reporting of hate crime is to give people the confidence that those offences are going to be thoroughly investigated and prosecuted and see a result in a public forum, namely the courtroom. And then we would like to see it reported in the press, which will give people confidence. The simple reality is that the very great majority of people who are charged with hate crimes end up either pleading guilty or being convicted. But I'm not sure that perception is held by the general public. But there is much to be encouraged by in relation to the way that the criminal justice system deals with disability hate crime. It is moving in the right direction, but I accept it could move more quickly.
Thank you. That's a really useful picture from all three of you, and you know, the urgency to get those numbers going more in the right direction couldn't be stronger. Now, both the Met and the CPS have been criticised for not taking action against police officers who've been found guilty of misconduct involving disabled people. Now, you know, in the Inclusion London report, there's really worrying examples of where officers at one station had all engaged in some or all of bullying and inappropriate behaviour, perverting the course of justice through evidence deletion, racist, misogynist and discriminatory behaviour and language, violence and manipulation of vulnerable people, and the use and sharing of ableist images, commentary and language. This is really worrying. Now, what is your response to these criticisms and what action are you taking? So that would be for Commander Dales first.
Thank you. So we have a Directorate of Professional Standards who have looked at and would look at any such reports, and we are guided by the national guidelines in relation to professional standards as defined by the Code of Ethics. I can't talk to you in detail about that case because I don't know the details of it. What I can say to you is that I'm 100% confident that that procedure would have been followed by our DPS. And if there was a need to hold any officer to account under misconduct or under any of the regulations, that would have been done so. But I'm afraid I can't talk in detail about that case because I don't know the specifics of it, and it'd be wrong for me to do so.
Yes, I appreciate you can't talk about a specific case, but just in terms of response to the criticism about not taking action against officers in general found guilty of misconduct involving disabled people, do you have anything to add on that?
I wouldn't want to add anything. My gut reaction would be to that can't be the case, and without actually knowing the details of the case that's been spoken about, yeah. I wouldn't want to pass any further comment on that.
Of course. Barry Hughes, do you have anything that you can add on this?
Thank you. I'll just make this point that I don't have knowledge of the particular case that you're referring to, other than what I've seen through the media. It's not something I've handled personally, so I'm afraid I can't help you with that. But we are a demand-led organisation. We apply the Code for Crown Prosecutors, and we have to be satisfied that if there is sufficient evidence to prosecute, we go on to consider whether it's in the public interest to prosecute. And if we were presented with a case involving a police officer where those two tests were both met, we would not hesitate to prosecute. And we have shown our independence. It's the reason why the CPS was set up a long time ago now. And we will prosecute police officers and have prosecuted police officers in high-profile cases over the course of last year and moving into this year, where there is evidence of criminal behaviour and where the public interest demands it. So we will take action. We are independent, and we will continue to take that action where it's appropriate to do so.
Thank you. So I now want to bring in Louise Holden from Inclusion London, and also Jennifer Taylor. You've both heard what the police and the CPS and MOPAC have, how they've responded to those questions just now. And I just wonder what more you think the Met and the CPS must do to improve the response on disability hate crime.
Thank you. Yeah, so, I mean, my initial response is that we welcome the hate crime strategic group, but I don't know who's representing the disabled community on that group. We have been invited to the hate crime community reference group, but not the strategic group. So we would welcome an invitation to that. I don't know of any other organisations that work London-wide around hate crime against disabled people. And we have had a close look at the police and crime draft plan. And within that, hate crime is not seen, is not identified to look at repeat victimisation. Domestic violence and sexual abuse victims are, but that's something that could be added to the final document. And just going to the conviction rate, it's really encouraging that that's increasing. However, the figures, when we looked at them in detail, there's actually an increase of violent hate crime. When we're talking about hate crime, it's not separate. A hate crime can only happen if a crime is committed and it's motivated by hatred or hostility, and then you get the uplift and the sentence. It's not a separate crime that the police are dealing with. So just make that point. And there was an increase of violent crimes that were motivated by hostility and hate. And of the 1,491 nationally that were instances of violent hate crime, 30 resulted in a charge or a summons. So the figure, and then from those, the charge or the summons, the conviction rate is high, but it's still a very low amount. So what that says to the disabled community is that we can be subjected to violent crime that's motivated by hatred about who we are, and we're not going to get a conviction. So I would say, I mean, the solutions are complex, and it's not just down to the police, it's a community response that's needed. We work very closely with the CPS and the MPS, and strategically, the work is fantastic and the commitment's there, but it's just not translating onto the ground. We were quite horrified when we surveyed our member organisations that provide frontline services. We didn't ask them, are you receiving a poor response from the police? We said, what's the response like? Absolutely shocked to find that all of the organisations that support many disabled victims of hate crime, none of them reported anything other than a completely poor response. And in the report, we have submitted the case studies of, from our organisations that detail all the particular failings that are happening for people. So what we would like is for the police to work with us and to have scrutiny panels of those cases on a regular basis. We'd like the HCOPs to get involved in disability hate crime matters, which was a highly successful initiative in 2016 that led to, I think it was 500% increase in flagged hate crimes. For some reason, there's a resistance to reinstating that. It has been reinstated for other types of crime, domestic abuse. There's DA matters.
I'm sorry, I'm getting signals from the chair that this section of questioning has gone on too long, and I did just want to let Jennifer, just as a disabled person, have a word on this question. So Jennifer, do you have a brief response to what you've heard from the police?
Yeah, I think I think it could be more better, because for us people with learning difficulties, I think it should be when we go to the police station and report or make a complaint, we would like to see more police believe in us, yeah, and trust us, yeah, as people as we complain to the police. And I find that some people with learning difficulties, they don't report it, or they don't make a complaint, and sometimes they just let their defender get away with it. So I'm saying, from my point of view, as a person with the learning difficulties and a woman with the learning difficulties, living on my own, yeah, I think it's right that the police work should do more work on us and listen to us. Yeah, but we've got to say to them, not just take it in consideration, you know.
Thank you. That's very, very.
Some of them don't even listen to us some of the time when we make a complaint to them, you know.
I think you've made a very clear point, which actually backs up what we heard from the CPS response about the importance of trust and confidence, and the importance of getting of people feeling that their complaints are going to be heard and believed. I'm going to hand back to the chair, because I'm very aware that I've taken too much time here.